Welcome back to The Big Story. We are talking politics with the no-nonsense social commentator and talk show host, Claude Skelton Klein. Kathy?
Yes, before we go to the break, I was about to ask you, do you think it's time for a snap election to deal with issues that they're presenting?
I tell you what, if there's not going to be a structural leadership change or pivot within the current government, it might be the very best option for us, because we cannot afford to continue on this trajectory that we're on. This is not good for us. So either they're going to shape up and begin to do what they've been elected to do, and or let's go back to the polls and elect a group of women and men who in fact are committed to advancing the cause and championing for the cause of BV Islanders.
How much more time would you give the governing administration to get their house in order?
These next 6 months?
No. Regarding the Premier, we've heard that the Premier can be a stubborn man and may not be listening to the advice that's coming from within his cabinet. Do you get the sense that he's not gonna go in terms of succession planning without a fight or on his own terms, or he's willing to come to some sort of consensus with the senior members of his party?
Yes, I mean, standing on the outside, I'm almost of the belief now that they have become so entrenched that the window have closed for them to change. Part of being humble is having the strength to be weak. Men in particular don't like to be perceived, whether real or unreal, as being weak. But if I were advising the Premier, never more does he have an opportunity to show uncommon strength than he has right now. And that's by taking and reshuffling his entire government and certain ministries. Come to the people and say, this is what I'm doing, here's why I'm doing it, here's what I believe will result what will result if I do this. But men in particular, because it's just men that's on cabinet. If we had some women in there, life would have been a whole lot different, I believe.
Agreed.
All right.
And the egos are so big that it is blinding what needs to happen for us and to us as a people. I believe if the Premier will step back, have the strength to be weak in this moment, follow that letter that the Honorable Eileen Parson wrote some months ago. Not just reshuffle the Ministry of Finance, but reshuffle some other areas in ministries and put greater responsibility on the backbenchers, because currently they're underutilized, and create a whole new vision. Good people, I've paid my dues. I have rendered my service. I'm getting ready to leave this state. But before I leave, I'll be doggone if I'm going to allow my person, my legacy, to go down in this flame of fire. If there's ever a time he needs to assert his power and assert his strength, is right now. And I am calling upon him to do that, because I believe it's in the best interest of the country to avert some of what I see will unfold if he does not.
Okay, so we've talked a lot about what this administration has not been doing. Let's take a little time and look at some of the things that they have been doing, whether it's something that we agree with or not.
Yes.
One of the things that stands out a lot that persons are comfortable or some are agreeing with is the imposition or the burden of taxes.
Yeah.
Talk to me about that aspects of things.
Listen, taxes is always a problem for anybody, anywhere, in every jurisdiction. Ain't nobody never happy about no tax. Let's be clear. And especially when your income isn't rising to the same degree in which taxes are. So it's a legitimate concern. But listen, this government, they completed a hospital, they instituted NHI. It's a tough pill to swallow, but in the long run, I think it's going to pay off if properly managed. There's been advancement with the technical school and some of the changes in education. There's been some environmental sensitivities that need to be brought to bear. It needs to be funded by the Minister of Natural Resources and Labor. And so these are some of the good things. They're showing up. They haven't spoken about it properly. They're showing up and has been fighting hard behind the scenes to preserve financial services, even though we have ultimately agreed to this public registry, which is, but these are challenging times. And this is what leadership is, and this is what leadership does. If it was going to be easy, then any Tom, Dick, and Harry could go do it. It requires persons with strength of character and the moral fortitude to step up in challenging times and say to our people, I'm going to give you this pill. I know it's going to be hard to swallow, but I'm telling you, if you swallow it, here are the benefits. But you got to communicate that. You got to share that. So there are some good things that needs to be applauded. After all, the Premier, no matter what else we say about him, he does have the $60 million in the reserve fund according to the protocols of management. So there are some good things in which we must applaud and do. But we have, the last 2 years, something in particular has gone radically wrong in these last 2 years. And that's what I think above all else has us in the state of flux that we are currently in.
Now, one of the things that the Premier keeps talking about that's necessary to have economic sustainability is the diversification of the economy. What are some of those areas that the territory can delve into to diversify, to ensure that locals are gainfully employed and that the economy bounces back?
Yeah, we need to be serious about the fishing industry. We need to be serious about the agricultural industry. We need to pick back up the mantle that they only had one reading in the House of Assembly on the value-added product for financial services, where they're going to separate the small business and corporations from the large businesses. Economies grow from small to medium-sized businesses. It's not the multinationals. It is those small to medium-sized mom-and-pop shop who can properly sophisticate themselves, access funds through banking and other granting things, depends on what the nature of the business is. But when you just have Klaus Skelton Klein doing business as, it doesn't cut it, not in the 21st century, and then you become individually liable rather than a corporation. So I think those are three particular areas in which we need to start. Food security is an issue. Agriculture is an issue in our country. We have to re-educate our people that when we think agriculture, we're not just talking about picking somebody out in a hot sun. No, agriculture feeds the world. Every day, they move them from the marketplace, they move them here, they move them there. Every day you spend money. You're going to right where Bobby to buy things that are box, can, bottled with all kind of additives that are not good for us, that are killing us and we don't know. So those are three areas in terms of budgetary items. It needs to be reflected that we are serious about those industries and bring them online, and then put all of these students, at least some of them who don't go off to college, own a piece of this pie, shadow this entrepreneur. And so you too can have your slice. But we have to be serious. And you only know people are serious if you pick up their budget, and if there are funds involved, or funds are appropriated rather, to fund what they are talking about.
Okay. One issue that we have not touched at all on here on the big story so far with you, the issue of crime.
Yeah.
There is the big brouhaha that it seems to be on the rise. There is not much spending being done in the right avenue to protect our borders and these issues. What is your take really in this regard?
Yeah, crime, which the whole prison system, judicial system, at least the magistrate component, is under the office of the governor. And we have a British national who's in charge of prison. I mean, that foolishness that we had the other day with the prison and people where they say were coming out and going, and they even had persons accused of committing crime. See, that people People ought to be fired. People ought to be a completely restructuring, overhaul of that kind of system. That is unacceptable. By whatever, I don't care what your explanation or excuse is. So that raises tremendous question. Next thing is we are an island nations. We have porous borders. Some kind of Coast Guard type mechanism needs to be in place that helps to protect how people get on and off this territory. You know, we had some helicopters flying around here today. 2 days later, they had a thing in the paper. They're finding marijuana fields all over the place, and they used that narcotics, and then they even had the word gun. I don't know how gun made it into that article, but you here have our magistrates and judges criminalizing something and sending our young boys in particular up to bar some gut on a matter that has been decriminalized, legalized, repackaged, rebranded, and people have now become billionaires over after what the Rasta man been telling us for all these years. There's something wrong with the structure and system of that. But I don't know, you know, they say this shows that you may need a helicopter. That helicopter wasn't doing nothing a drone can do. And we got all kind of people around here with all kind of drones. The police station you go by when they want to figure out where marijuana fields are. So my point is, we ain't serious. Security constitutionally is a shared responsibility between the governor and the premier. They need to do a better job of how the jurisdiction is policed. Most of the police officers are our regional neighbors. There is a divide that needs to be bridged. We cannot underestimate community policing and how you gather information. Most of the officers that are now coming in by this police commissioner are British national. That creates a different set of problems, you know. You can't just be sitting on King Garden Bay Beach, sitting on by mulligans and drinking and carrying on and all that kind of stuff on Beaver Islanders taxpayers' dime, and we still don't have crimes being solved and things being addressed. So the government, through the office of the premier and his cabinet, needs to make a demand in collaboration with the office of the governor as to corrective and curative measures that need to take place. They need to come and share throughout the territory what is being done, what are you asking the territory to do, how they can do it so that we can keep our crime at a minimum and not criminalize or have us begin to look at our young people as criminals, because that is not the case.
Lord Skelton Klein, strong words on which to end it. Thank you very much for delving into all these hot button issues with us here on The Big Story.
Well, appreciate you all having me. God's blessings.
That's it for The Big Story for this week. Social commentator and talk show host Claude Skelton Klein says the Premier needs to reshuffle his cabinet and himself if he's to save face or any amount of political capital before the next general election is due in 2 years, or he's out. That's it. Until next week. Bye-bye.